Senator Kramer, would you mind picking up the
if
baton and running with
if
it?
I must.
Please.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'm afraid I might jump ahead of Senator Capito, even in the questions on my first question, since she brought it up in her opening statement. But first of all, Administrator, thank you for being here, and thank you again for your trip to North Dakota. As I mentioned to Administrator Fox last week, it was a fun day. I hope that you found it useful. I know that you implemented some of the things you heard from our landowners and farmers concerning waters of the United States. And while we still think it comes up way, way, way short, you were there. Showing up matters, and you did listen, and we appreciate that a lot. And continue to look forward to working with you more. The chairman said that we asked the EPA to do more with less. I'm asking you to do less with less. I think this is he talked about tale of two cities. I'm talking about tale of two philosophies. And I'm going to start by challenging you a little bit on what I think Senator Capito probably wants to talk to you about as well, and that is why the EPA went ahead with a WOTUS rule, a durable WOTUS rule, when it was anything but durable, considering we're in the middle of a case at the Supreme Court, the Sackett case, and now awaiting that ruling. This durable word was, of course, to prevent the ping-ponging of the rule. 24 states have already challenged your new rule. Wouldn't it have made sense to just wait till after the EPA, maybe have a more durable rule, and then free up all that time and all of those resources to do something, a higher priority, perhaps?
Well, Senator Kramer, and I think maybe my count is right now we have 2 states that have challenged the rule. Maybe more will join. When I embarked upon my listening tour, I think farmers and ranchers asked for certainty and durability, recognizing that the Trump Navigable Waters Rule had been vacated and that there was no Obama Clean Water Rule in place, which means we were faced with a pre-2015 scenario. So we worked really hard. We held regional listening sessions all across the country. We went through a very thorough regulatory process. And, basically, I think we looked at the pre-2015 regulation. And what we did was we codified 2 Supreme Court rulings post-2015. And then in this rule, I think we threaded a very good needle. And what we did was we codified over 8 exemptions that were requested by the ranching and farming community, in addition to providing this durability or this certainty to move forward. Now, we recognize that the Sackett case will have some impact on the rule, but what we didn't want to do was wait until after June, wait for the Supreme Court, and then start a 2-year process, which would have left farmers and ranchers in limbo.
All right, we're going to disagree on that for sure, and I don't want to get into the details of WOTUS right now because I do want to move on. Speaking of, you said I think 85% of the money in the IRA is for EPA goes to states or something to that effect. The authority rests with states. That's the area where I'm the most concerned with regard to another Supreme Court ruling, of course, on the Clean Air Act ruling, West Virginia versus EPA. I worry that the EPA is still presuming authority that it doesn't have. After that ruling, and I'll be real specific. In the IRA, there's $45 million specifically for perhaps using within Section 111, which is what, of course, West Virginia versus EPA was all about, to engage in even more Clean Air Act intervention, if you will, on the part of the EPA. Is there anything in the IRA, in addition to the $45 million, that gives the EPA this authority to go at the source and to fuel change, or to suggest fuel changing or require fuel changing for generation? Is there a new authority that you didn't have before?
No, what I would say is that the Supreme Court made it clear that it was not permissible for EPA to base emission guidelines under Section 111 on generation shifting.
Right.
And so the court's decision did not draw any conclusions regarding any other control measures, but it was specific there. So we have an obligation, the law requires that we put forward a regulation around greenhouse gas emissions. We are following the Supreme Court's ruling. We are following our Clean Air Act Authority. We have engaged extensively with the power sector on this rule. And so I can assure you that we're going to stay well within the guardrails, but our rule will set the structure for the opportunities in this country, especially those that have come about because of the Inflation Reduction Act.
Well, I do prefer states' authorities, of course. I think the Supreme Court does as well. I was going to ask next about the methane rule because I think it's similar. It's another one of those things where state primacy is being dictated or overridden by the EPA, perhaps. And as I always like to say, please don't impose the federal government's mediocrity on